What if silence was the loudest betrayal? That was the question Jessica Monroe never thought she'd be asking herself at 32 years old. Born and raised in the charming town of Asheville, North Carolina, Jessica had always believed in love, family, and the kind of loyalty that was never supposed to shatter. She didn't grow up surrounded by chaos. Her world was not made up of fists, shouting matches, or broken bottles. No, her life was more silent than that, the kind of silence that wraps itself around your memories like a warm quilt. The kind that made you believe you were safe, protected, loved. She trusted them all. Her mother, Ruth, strong, outspoken, and fiercely protective. Her older brother, Mark, the golden child of the family, the one who seemed to always know right from wrong. And her cousin Bailey, her best friend since birth, the keeper of her secrets, the other half of her soul. If you asked Jessica 5 years ago what betrayal looked like, she would have said it was something loud, cruel, and obvious. Maybe a scream. Maybe a broken promise. Maybe a slammed door. But not this. Not silence. Not love disguised as protection. Not people keeping secrets because they didn't want to hurt her. The truth hadn't come from the mouths of her family. It hadn't been given gently, or even out of guilt. It had slipped through the cracks of a conversation with a stranger. A conversation she wasn't supposed to be part of. And when she heard it, just 5 words, her entire life stopped moving. She still doesn't know, huh? 5 words. Spoken casually. And they ripped a hole through 15 years of peace. Jessica stood in the hallway that day, half hidden behind the door to a cafe restroom, unable to breathe. The voice was familiar, someone from church, maybe. Someone who had no idea she was standing there, frozen in time, hearing the start of something that would end everything. She didn't ask questions right away. She didn't storm out or confront anyone. Instead, she sat alone that night in her 1-bedroom apartment, sipping cold chamomile tea, staring at nothing, and trying to stitch together every moment from her past that never quite made sense. A glance. A pause in conversation. A sudden change of subject. The way Bailey always grew quiet when they passed that part of town. The way her mother used to cry silently in the kitchen after dinner when she thought Jessica had gone to sleep. She still doesn't know. Huh? What didn't she know? What had they all hidden so well for so long that it took a stranger's careless comment to bring it to the surface? The days that followed were heavy, each one pressing harder against her chest than the last. Jessica didn't ask right away because she wasn't sure she was ready for the answer. But something inside her had shifted. A quiet rebellion. A need to know. Because if the people you love most hide something from you, is it still love? Or is it a kind of betrayal so deep that it wears the mask of protection? She opened her journal that night, the one she'd kept since high school, the one with tattered pages and dried lavender tucked between the first few entries, and began writing the words that had haunted her since that overheard sentence. I don't know what they kept from me, but I'm afraid of what I'll become when I find out. The story of Jessica Monroe wasn't about one moment. It was about many moments, about choices, about silence, and about a truth so carefully hidden, it took years for even one of them to finally speak up. But when they did, everything shattered. Not because the truth was ugly, not because she couldn't handle it, but because they all had the chance to tell her before. And not one of them did. Jessica Monroe had always been the kind of woman people gravitated toward, not because she was loud, flashy, or particularly commanding, but because her presence felt safe. Warm. Like a fire on a cold winter night. She was the listener, the helper, the one who remembered birthdays, noticed changes in tone, and checked in when others didn't even realize they needed it. She had a softness to her, a steady kindness inherited from her late grandmother, Eleanor, who had once told her, being gentle in this world is a kind of rebellion. Don't ever let them harden you. Jessica listened. Maybe too well. Maybe that's why she hadn't noticed how much was being left unsaid around her. She grew up in a modest home just outside Asheville, North Carolina, a tight-knit community where everyone knew everyone and secrets were like ghosts that wandered but never truly disappeared. Her house had white shutters, a front porch swing that creaked in the summer heat, and a yard full of hydrangeas that her mother, Ruth, obsessively trimmed every Saturday morning. Ruth Monroe was a complex woman, equal parts strength and silence. She'd raised Jessica and her older brother, Mark, mostly on her own after their father left when Jessica was just 8.
He didn't die.
He just stopped showing up. And somehow Ruth never talked about him again. Not even once. Not even when Jessica asked, years later, if he was still alive. Ruth would only reply, "You've got all you need right here." Mark Monroe, 5 years older, was the family's golden child. A football star in high school, now a decorated firefighter with a solid jawline and an impossible sense of responsibility. He was Jessica's hero when she was younger. He protected her from bullies, drove her to prom when her date bailed, and always brought her favorite peanut butter donuts after his late-night shifts. Then there was Bailey. Bailey Jameson wasn't just Jessica's cousin. She was her sister in everything but blood. Their mothers were sisters, and their bond had been unbreakable since birth. They shared secrets, clothes, dreams, even heartbreaks. If anyone knew everything about Jessica, it was Bailey. They had dreams of moving to New York together after college, starting a small business, maybe a bookstore cafe. But Jessica stayed behind when her mother fell ill during her junior
year.
Bailey went. They talked less after that. Not because anything went wrong, just life happened. And then there was Mason. Mason Reed, the quiet boy with ink-stained fingers who had moved in next door the summer Jessica turned 16. He was the mystery she didn't know she'd been waiting for. Thoughtful, artistic, a little broken in a way she found endearing. Their romance didn't start with fire. It started with long walks, shared playlists, and notes passed in church. Mason never liked crowds, and Jessica never needed them. They fit. He left town after college too, not with Bailey but just on his own. Said he needed to figure things out. Jessica didn't fight him on it. Maybe she should have. Maybe things would have been different. But nothing really felt wrong back then. Sure, there were things she didn't understand. The way conversations sometimes stopped when she entered the room, or how people at church would occasionally glance at her with something like pity. But she chalked it up to overthinking. She trusted them all. Ruth, Mark,
Bailey,
even Mason. They were her world. And yet now, with just one sentence overheard, that world felt like it had always been made of paper. She began revisiting old memories. Not the kind in photo albums. Those were too perfect. Smiling faces. Coordinated outfits. Birthday candles and Christmas trees. No. She started picking apart the real memories. Like the time she overheard Bailey arguing with her mom late one night, and when Jessica asked what it was about, Bailey said, "Nothing. Just stupid family stuff." Or when her mother started crying quietly over a photo of her father Jessica didn't even know she still had. Or the way Mark used to act extra protective when she went out on dates in high school, even with boys he knew and liked. And Mason who had whispered, "I'll always love you, but I can't stay here," right before he disappeared for 4 years. At the time, she accepted all these moments at face value. Now, she wasn't so sure. She started calling old friends, people who had drifted away over time, classmates, neighbors, even her old youth pastor from church. And while no one said anything direct, she kept getting the same vibe that something had happened. Something big. Something she was the only one not told. She sat across from Bailey one evening at a coffee shop downtown, the same place they used to go to every Saturday during college. It was raining outside, the kind of steady drizzle that blurred the lights of passing cars and wrapped the world in a quiet kind of sorrow. Jessica stirred her drink slowly. She didn't look up when she asked the question. "Did something happen that I was never told about?" Bailey went still. She didn't deny it. She didn't pretend to misunderstand. She just stared at her cup, hands trembling slightly. Jessica didn't push. She let the silence speak. After a long pause, Bailey whispered, "I thought they would have told you by now." That was it. Confirmation. Everything inside her shifted. Her brother. Her mother.
Bailey.
Maybe even Mason. They all knew. And none of them told her. Whatever it was, it mattered. Because even though Bailey said nothing more that night, Jessica knew. The silence wasn't random. It was chosen. They chose to let her live in a lie. And now it was time to find out why. Jessica hadn't been sleeping. Nights became a blur of unanswered questions and restless pacing. Every time she closed her eyes, the silence screamed louder. The words Bailey whispered at the cafe, "I thought they would have told you by now," echoed like a siren in her chest. What was it? Why had the people who claimed to love her most decided she didn't need to know? She couldn't focus at work anymore. Her job as a community outreach coordinator at a local nonprofit, something that once gave her purpose, now felt hollow. Paperwork stacked up. Emails went unanswered. Her supervisor noticed. So did her coworkers. But she offered no explanations. How could she? Her world was unraveling, and she didn't even know why yet. She needed answers. So she did what she'd always been afraid to do. She confronted Mark. He was in the backyard, grilling, when she showed up unannounced on a warm Thursday evening. His 2 kids were inside playing, and his wife, Dana, smiled nervously when she saw Jessica standing at the door. "Mark's out back," Dana said, rubbing her arm awkwardly. "He'll be happy to see you." Jessica could tell Dana knew something too. She stepped onto the patio, the scent of charred meat heavy in the summer air. Mark turned around and grinned.
Jess.
What a surprise. His voice was cheerful, his stance relaxed, as if they were just 2 siblings catching up on old times. But Jessica didn't smile. She stood still, hands clenched, heart thudding. "I need you to tell me the truth," she said quietly. "Right now." Mark's grin faded. The spatula in his hand trembled just slightly. "Truth about what?" She stepped closer. "About what happened. About what you've all kept from me. I know something happened. I heard someone talking." Bailey confirmed it. Mark's face darkened. "Jessica, it's complicated." "No," she said, louder this time. "It's not complicated. It's cruel. I'm your sister. I've trusted you my entire life. And you all decided I didn't deserve to know something about my own life." Mark's jaw clenched. He put the spatula down. "It wasn't my place to tell you." "Then whose was it?" she snapped. "Because everyone's acted like it's not their place. And now I'm the only one still walking around in the dark." He ran a hand through his hair, looked away. Then he said something that sent chills down her spine. It was about Dad. Jessica froze. Her father. The man who left when she was 8. The man no one ever spoke of. The man whose absence she had learned to live with. Her voice came out like a whisper. "What about him?" Mark's face was pale now.
He didn't leave us, Jess.
He was arrested. Jessica blinked. "What?" Mark's voice was hollow now. "He didn't walk away. He didn't disappear. He was taken. By the police. It was all over the local news. You were too young. Mom told us not to tell you." She couldn't breathe. For what? He hesitated. There were allegations. Against him. From someone close to the family. He was accused of abusing someone. Jessica's stomach dropped. The ground beneath her shifted.
No.
"That's not true. That can't be true." "I'm sorry," Mark said. "But it is. He went to prison. He died there 6 years ago." Her mind went blank. Her father, the man she'd cried over, missed, written letters to that were never sent, wasn't absent by choice. He was gone because he was dangerous. Because he had hurt someone. Because her mother, her brother, her cousin had kept it all from her. She left without saying goodbye. Jessica drove for hours that night. Past the town. Past the woods. Past everything familiar. Her face was soaked with tears. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stay still. The betrayal wasn't just in the secret. It was in every memory that had been built on a lie. Her mind spiraled. Who had he hurt? Was it someone she knew? Was it someone she loved? The more she thought, the worse it got. And then a horrible thought clawed into her mind. Was it me? Was she the one her father had hurt? And everyone had kept her in the dark to protect her? The idea was unbearable. She called Bailey. No answer. She called again. Nothing. Then finally, Bailey texted. Come over. I'll tell you everything. Bailey lived in a small, cozy home nestled in the hills, surrounded by trees that whispered with every gust of wind. Jessica stepped inside like she was walking into a memory. Pictures of them lined the walls, smiling,
Carefree.
so much trust in their eyes. Bailey had 2 cups of tea waiting. Her face was pale. Her hands trembled. I should have told you years ago, Bailey whispered. Jessica didn't speak. Bailey took a deep breath. It wasn't you. It was me. The world stopped. I was the one your father hurt, Jess. Jessica's knees buckled. She collapsed into the couch, unable to speak. He used to when I would stay over. It started when I was 10. It happened for a while. And then I told your mom. She went straight to the police. It was the bravest thing she ever did. Jessica couldn't process the words. I didn't want you to lose your father. I didn't want to lose you. So I never told you. I thought maybe you'd hate me. Maybe you'd think I ruined everything. Jessica's heart shattered. Bailey, her voice was hoarse. Why didn't you tell me? Because I loved you. Because we all thought you were too young to understand. And when you got older, it never felt like the right time. Jessica was sobbing now. Not just for herself, but for Bailey. For the little girl who had suffered in silence. For the woman who had carried the pain of not only the abuse, but the guilt of protecting someone who didn't deserve it. I'm so sorry, Jessica whispered. I don't want your apology, Bailey said softly. I just want you to know the truth. Later that night, Jessica sat alone in her car, staring at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Everything made sense now. The silence. The glances. The pauses. They hadn't kept the truth from her because they hated her. They did it because they didn't know how to let her live with it. But in doing so, they broke her in a different way. They made her doubt herself, her memories, her relationships. Jessica had always thought betrayal came in the form of lies. But now she knew the most dangerous betrayal was silence. The next morning, Jessica didn't get out of bed. Her body was sore, not from physical pain, but from the emotional storm that had crashed through her entire existence the night before. Bailey's voice still rang in her ears. It wasn't you. It was me. The weight of that truth, both horrifying and heartbreaking, settled into Jessica's chest like a stone she didn't know how to carry. All her life, she had mourned a father who had chosen to leave. She had replayed scenes in her mind where he drove away, turned his back, never looked back. But now she knew. He hadn't left by choice. He'd been removed, arrested,
Charged.
sentenced, died in prison, because he had abused someone. And that someone had been her cousin, her best friend, her sister in everything but blood. The betrayal she had imagined, someone cheating, lying, sneaking around, was nothing compared to this. This was deeper, more delicate, because it wasn't done to her. It had been done for her, or so they believed. They thought silence would protect her. Instead, it hollowed her out. She got up just before noon and drove to her mother's house. The White House. The creaky swing. The familiar yard she'd spent her childhood playing in. And now it looked different. Smaller. Older. Full of ghosts. Ruth opened the door. Her face was calm, but her eyes knew why Jessica had come. Without a word, Ruth stepped aside. Jessica walked in. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and guilt. Jessica sat at the table. Ruth poured tea, the same way she always had. Only this time, there was no small talk. Why didn't you tell me? Jessica asked. Ruth sat across from her. Her hands were steady. Because you were 8. And I saw how much you loved him. And I couldn't take both your parents away in one moment. You took the truth away instead. Ruth looked down. Jessica continued, her voice trembling but steady. You always said we don't lie in this house. But you lied by omission. For years. You let me believe he just left. That he walked out on us. I spent my whole life wondering why I wasn't enough for him to stay. I thought I was protecting you, Ruth said softly. Jessica slammed her hand on the table. But you weren't. You were protecting your version of peace. Your version of what you thought I could handle. But it wasn't yours to decide. Ruth finally looked up. Her eyes were wet now. I didn't know how to tell a child that her father was a monster. Silence filled the room. Jessica stood, walked to the sink, stared out the window. When did he die? 6 years ago. Liver failure. He was in isolation for most of his sentence. He wrote letters, I never mailed them. I didn't want his words to poison you. Jessica turned slowly. I would have burned them myself. But at least I would have had a choice. Ruth wiped her tears. You're right. And I'm sorry. Jessica didn't respond. That night, Jessica drove to the edge of town. There was a bench near the lake, the same bench she and Mason used to sit on as teenagers. It was quiet there, still. She needed to breathe where the world couldn't reach her. But to her surprise, Mason was already there. He turned as she approached. A flicker of something familiar passed through his eyes. You look like you've seen 1,000 ghosts, he said quietly. I have. They sat in silence. Then she asked, You knew too, didn't you? He nodded slowly. I was 17 when Bailey told me. I didn't want to believe it. But when she told me, I couldn't look at your father the same way. And I couldn't look at you the same way either.
Why?
Because I didn't know how to love you without feeling like I was part of the lie. And I didn't know how to tell you without shattering you. Jessica looked at him. The boy she'd once loved. The man who had walked away. So you chose distance. He nodded. It felt like the only honest thing I could give you. She looked away. Bailey told me everything. And now? I don't know, she whispered. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what part of my life was real. What memories I can trust. He placed his hand gently on hers. You were always real. Your love, your kindness, that was yours. That wasn't built on lies. Tears streamed down her face. Then, why does it feel like I've been living someone else's life? Because part of your story was stolen from you. But now it's yours again. Over the next few days, Jessica began to reclaim pieces of herself. She met with Bailey again. Not as a shattered woman, but as someone learning how to stand in the ruins. They cried. They laughed. They held hands. Bailey shared what therapy had taught her. Jessica asked what it had been like growing up with that kind of secret, that kind of pain. Bailey told her everything. And for the first time, Jessica listened, not as someone looking for answers, but as someone offering space. Offering understanding. Offering love. They were healing.
Together.
Jessica also sat down with Mark again. It wasn't easy. He broke down in front of her, apologized again and again for choosing silence. I thought I was doing what was best for you, he said. Jessica nodded. You thought wrong. But you're still my brother. They hugged. And slowly, very slowly, the fractures began to mend. One afternoon, Jessica found one of her old journals. Tucked inside was a folded piece of paper she didn't remember placing there. It was a letter. Not from her father, but from her younger self. It was dated a week after he had left. Dear Dad, I don't know where you are, but I hope you're happy. I miss you. I hope I didn't do something wrong. Everyone says it's not my fault, but I still wonder. I just wanted to say I love you, even if you don't come back. Jessica held the letter to her chest and wept. Not for the man who had hurt her family, but for the little girl who had carried guilt she never deserved. That little girl deserved peace. And Jessica would give it to her. Weeks later, Jessica stood in front of a small support group at the community center where she worked. She decided to host a series called Truth and Healing, a space where people could come and talk about secrets, about pain, about family scars. She shared her story, carefully, without names, without shame. And when she was done, a woman in the back of the room said softly, Thank you. I've never told anyone what happened to me, but tonight, I think I will. Jessica smiled through her tears. Because finally, the silence had been broken. Maybe you feel a strange ache in your heart right now, the kind that doesn't always make sense. Maybe you're still trying to understand how your own blood could weave lies so cruelly and hide the truth that belonged to you. But hear me now, beloved. This is not your ending. This is your beginning. You, Emma Carter, were not born to be anyone's pawn. You were not created to live in the shadows of someone else's deception.
No.
You were formed with divine intention, a masterpiece in motion, destined for more than you were ever told. And now you're walking into a new season. You are not alone. The betrayal you endured has not gone unseen by the heavens. What was done in darkness is now being brought into light, not to break you, but to build you stronger than ever before. The strength you showed when you faced your family, the courage it took to stand tall when your knees were shaking, these moments did not go unnoticed. The angels watched, and they wept, not in sorrow, but in awe of your resilience. God smiled, not because of the pain, but because of your choice to rise anyway. Now, the path ahead may not be paved with perfect peace, but you will walk it differently. With clarity, with power, with the truth as your sword and peace as your shield. Emma, let this message be a turning point. Let it be the day you say, I am no longer bound by lies. I am no longer tied to people who didn't value me. I am free. I am chosen. I am being divinely guided to my next chapter. And what a chapter it will be. You'll soon find others who see you, not as broken or used, but as the powerful soul you truly are. You'll find relationships built on honesty, not control. Love that lifts you, not diminishes you. You'll build a life that reflects the truth you were denied for so long. The universe is rearranging itself right now to favor you. Doors will open that no man can shut. Opportunities will emerge that were hidden before. Your name will be spoken in rooms where you were once forgotten. So don't hold back now. Walk boldly. Forgive, not for them, but to set yourself free. Heal, not because they deserve peace, but because you do. Grow, not to prove a point, but to live your purpose. And know this. The family who lied may have stolen moments, but they did not and cannot steal your destiny. Your story is just beginning, and the best pages haven't even been written yet.